Welcome, Journey students. We are so glad to have you here. We are introducing to you Jody McBrayer. He has been a singer with Avalon and Cana's Voice. We are just excited to have him with us. My name is Luke Milam. I am the youth pastor at First Baptist Church of Bremen and also a missionary with Children's Bible Ministries. We make these videos to inspire and encourage young people, the next generation, to fulfill the Great Commission 7 days a week. We're talking about how to be an overcomer. Jody, if you don't mind, if you could just, there might be some people out there in YouTube world who don't know who Jody McBrayer is. And so could you just give us a little bit of a snippet? A little bit of a snippet to who you are and what you've been doing.
So I sang with a group called Avalon for 12 years. And Avalon was popular between 1996 and I'd say 2006, I suppose. We were, I guess if you would consider it successful in the Christian music industry, we were. And I left that group in 2007 and didn't really do any kind of music at all for about 7 years, and then started traveling again and doing stuff on my own. And this is the Cliff's Notes version, obviously, which Cliff's Notes, if you don't know what that is, is an abridged version of the story.
Now it's Wikipedia.
Yeah, right. This is the Wikipedia version. But then I started traveling again, doing music again. I started a trio with two other people called Cana's Voice, which Cana being the city in the Bible where Jesus performed his first miracle. And there's a whole story about that too. Lots of stories. And then ended up kind of coming full circle and singing with Avalon again. And so Avalon, we got the band back together, signed a record deal last year, put out a record in February. And so I do music and I do ministry full time. When
you left Avalon, you left because you had a heart condition.
Yeah,
and
mainly.
Everybody faces some kind of trial at some point in their life. How we react to that trial really writes a story in our life. What was the journey that once you left Avalon to getting back into singing?
When I left Avalon in 2007, I had been diagnosed with a degenerative form of heart disease. I have a genetic abnormality in my heart muscle, so it causes it to atrophy. And at that point, I had lost 19% of my heart muscle function. It was one of the things. My marriage was falling apart, if I can be honest about it, which I'm going to be honest because it's part of my story. My wife worked for a record company here in town, and my daughter, we had just had a baby girl, and I was always gone. And she and I were like two ships passing in the night, man. I would come home from a trip and she would get up and get dressed and leave. And we would take my daughter over to her grandparents to stay because we were never home. And we just didn't have a good relationship at all. And there were a lot of reasons why it was bad. I mean, without going into all the details, we just were very poor communicators. I left in 2007 broken. I had doctors and we had counselors say, look, you need to get your life in order. You need to go home and take care of your health, take care of your family. And so I left and got to the business of trying to put my broken family back together and my broken body back together. I spent 7 years not singing at all. My wife's family owns a promotional products company, and I took a job working for them. It was miserable, but it paid the bills, and I was just I'm so sorry. There's traffic everywhere. But this is the only place because my daughter's doing online school in the house, so I can't do it in the house.
I have 5 kids, so I know.
I struggled for 7 years doing something that I knew I wasn't supposed to be doing, but yet I didn't feel like I was worthy to be doing what God called me to do. Does that make sense? Like I felt like that I was flawed. I was broken. We did put our marriage back together, but we went through so much. We lost 2 children, and then we tried to adopt, and the child that we tried to adopt passed away. So it was just kind of like a 1-2 punch for us. You know what I mean? I just got beat in the gut so many times, and I started to spiral into depression, and it got to the place where I really couldn't figure out what was up and what was down. So much so that I got so depressed that one night after we had lost the baby that we were going to adopt, I took my wife and my daughter to the beach because I had to hire somebody to come in and repaint the nursery and change that all back to what it
Oh my
was.
goodness. Yeah.
So I went and stood in the ocean at like 3 o'clock in the morning and yelled at God and just said, you swore you wouldn't put more on me than I could bear, and I'm dying down here, and I just don't want to live anymore. I was just at my end. And I really believe in my heart that I had every intention of walking in the water and never coming back out. Just, I knew I had life insurance, and if I drowned, that people would say it was an accident, and my family would be okay. And I don't know. It was that dark. Somehow I got back into my bed the next morning. I remember standing in the water, and then the next thing I remember is waking up and being in my bed.
Wow.
And the sun was coming in the window, and my wife and my daughter were laughing downstairs in the kitchen, and I hadn't heard laughter in a while. That was really the turning point for me. I called my best friend on the phone and I said, hey, I think I've reached rock bottom here and I need some help. And he put me in touch with an amazing man of God who kicked my spiritual butt and really just said, you know what? You have a purpose, you have a calling, and there's a responsibility that's on your shoulders to fulfill that, because God never said that life was going to be perfect. He never said it was going to be easy. He just said he would never leave you.
Wow.
And so the fact that I'm here today is living proof of the fact that God has never left me. It hasn't always been easy. It's still not easy, obviously. I mean, we're all in quarantine, and, none of us are working or making any money, and it really stinks. But I know God is with me, and I know that nothing is wasted in his hands. Like every heartache that we experience, every challenge we go through, every joy that's in our lives, it's all for a purpose. And because of that journey of those years that I wasn't traveling, God really opened my eyes to that.
So what about your heart? Losing 19% of your heart, that's a big deal.
Yeah. So right now I'm at 36% loss, but I have been at 36% for, going on 7 years now. Shortly after I left, my cardiologist got me involved with it. We live in Nashville, Tennessee, so Vanderbilt Medical Center is here.
Yeah.
And he got me involved with a stem cell trial where they literally injected me with stem cells to see if they could reanimate dead muscle tissue in my heart. Did it for the first 6 months. There weren't really any positive results, but they said sometimes it's because it has to be done on a regular basis. So I did it again for another 6 months. And even though it didn't reanimate muscle tissue, it has stopped it from spreading. Well, we think that that's what it is. I mean, I tend to think it's God, but the doctors like to say that it's the clinical trial, And so, so that's where I am. I've been there ever since. And
I was talking with my wife. I mean, she's a classical pianist. She sings, she teaches piano, teaches voice. That would absolutely wreck her world if she had to quit music altogether.
It did wreck my world. But I think that sometimes your world has to be wrecked for God to get your attention. You know what I mean? And I didn't know that at the time. I mean, at the time, I just thought life is cruel and, my life is over as I know it. And
yeah,
I remember standing in the bathroom of the office complex where I was working after I left Avalon and looking in the mirror thinking, this is your life. This is forever now. You're going to be stuck in this bathroom in this corporate world that you were never created to be in. Some people are created to be corporate people, and that's great. But it wasn't what I was used to. And so I remember sitting there thinking, this is it, and just that feeling of defeat and that feeling of just my life is over as I know it. He had to bring me to my knees in order for me to really see who he was. I think it's important too for all the students that are watching and listening here too. It's like, yes, marriage is going to be difficult.
yes.
It's wonderful. It's got so many perks to it. It's fantastic, but it's very difficult. My father was a Baptist pastor. He was a military man, and then he worked for the Postal Service, but he was a part-time pastor. And he would do weddings all the time. And I remember hearing my dad give the wedding vows to people. And in part of the vows, before he would do the vows, he would just speak. And one of the things he would say was, at some point, one or both of you are going to want out. I remember thinking as a teenager, gosh, that's awful. That's harsh. I mean, you're getting married. You get married forever. You don't want out, but it's the truth. The older you get, the more you realize, yeah, sometimes I just want to run away, Doesn't mean I don't love this person, but it gets difficult. You have to just fight through it, just like anything else. You have to keep fighting through it. I'm just grateful that we fought through it too, and that we're still here.
Thank you for being a part of this 3-part series with Jody McBrayer. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Thank you as always. It's all about Jesus.